What's up, everybody? Unrested here in this tiny little box in the corner. You see my big old face down there? I'm talking into the camera, but guess what? I recorded at this place called the Children's Art Museum that is a temporary show at the Haruka's building in Tennoji, Osaka. It is an awesome interactive art series that has everything from light to touch art to projection art and all this different stuff. The lighting was horrible for it, so you can probably already see that just by how my face looks in here. I look like I'm in some sort of 5 o'clock shadow shot or night for day type shot. It looks awful. And on top of that, the sound was even worse. And that's why you're hearing me right now up in the corner of this video. I'm going to go ahead and go through with you and describe each of these pieces that we saw while we were there. This first one was a wall projection piece in which computer animated balls were shot down and you can interact with them via your own shadow being projected onto the wall. Now, pretty much everything that was there at this different, I guess, series of art was like this. It was, number one, made for children. You can't see, but my children are actually in this shot. They're just very tiny, so you can't see all the way down there. I think you'll get to see them in a couple shots. I did actually take the time to make sure I got their opinion on how these things were, but you could barely hear them, unfortunately. This one you're seeing behind me right now was actually a video that measured the human body via pixels, which I completely don't understand why or how that works. I don't know how you measure someone via pixels, but apparently everything in our universe can be broken down into pixels just like images on a computer screen, and there's actually a point in which we can no longer become smaller as far as like the reflection of our light that makes up the particles of our body. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm completely making up science as I go, but that's what that had to do with. Now back here we had these cool triangles on the wall that were having light and sound projected onto them, and as you touched them you actually changed what the art program was. It was called Vertexseed. I can't pronounce that correctly. Vertexseed, I hope I'm saying that correctly. I didn't see the katakana long enough to be able to pronounce it. And it was pretty cool. This one, I think this is probably one of my favorite, my son and I's favorite. Both of my kids really enjoyed this, especially my 3-year-old. At first, you can see I'm like touching all over the wall. I couldn't figure out where the hell to touch here. And then my son was smarter than me, of course, as always. And he's like, Dad, you got to be touching these triangles on the walls to make things change. So finally, you'll see my hand reach over and touch it. And I finally figured out how it worked. I'm just going to give you a little bit of imagery of this, maybe play some music to it for a bit. You can enjoy that while we move on to the next thing. Okay, so next up here we had this really weird hexagonal type setup with all these different types of lights, and these had, I don't know if you'll be able to see them because the light was so poor here, they're these little rectangle squares next to the light. If you look, they are very small. And at first, again, I couldn't figure out how to use this, but what you do is you go up and you touch these different little rectangles, and they would change like a mood ring and change the different lights, colors, and everything else as far as how the interconnected lights would change. So, for example, if your fingers would touch a couple over on one side, the hexagons connected to those, or the triangles connected to those, would also change out for a certain span. Here you can see my son, again, he's teaching me how the hell to use all this stuff. Kids seem to understand it way better than adults. That's why it's probably kids' museum art stuff. It is made for them. It's down at their level. You can see my little 3-year-old too. He could easily figure this out. He had a great time. And again, it was all at his level. I mean, he's still really tiny, and he loved it. He was having a great time. They were touching these a bunch. You can see as it's flashing and changing colors. You can't see how dramatically they do change colors just because my camera couldn't adjust quick enough. I really need to get a better camera that can handle low light situations because this really tested and showed that mine cannot. SLR, not so good for low light.
Well, that's weird. I don't get it.
Next up, you can see this really wacky one here. This one was very interesting. I think for me personally, this was the one I liked the most because I deal with cameras all the time. And what this did was have a camera that recorded you in front of a screen. It would then project whatever the camera had recorded onto a giant wall, drop frames out, and make you appear to move quicker. It would drop frames out and also reverse frames too, so you would have these wacky movements. you would just move normal, like we are moving completely normal here. We're just, doing a little bit of slow hand movement and stuff like this and just waving and saying hi, but then it's speeding it up, reversing it, and playing it back and dropping frames out. I don't know what this procedure is called. I don't know how you do it. I wish I could do it on my own computer. It would probably look pretty sweet, but take a long time to edit. My kids love this. They could not get enough of this. I'd say the only thing that kind of sucked about it was very tiny, the area that you had to do it in, and there was actually this white line that you couldn't go past or it wouldn't record you correctly, and that wasn't enough room for how many people were there. This place was packed. This next one was really interesting too. I liked it a lot because not a lot of people were around it. They didn't want to mess with it. I guess it wasn't as interesting to them. But for me, I thought this was a pretty cool idea. Again, it was all these images and stuff being flashed and projected down onto a table, but you had these pieces of paper that you could interact with that had these technical drawings on them, usually blueprints, layouts, or some sort of technical aspect of a machine or a robot. And when you would put them down and match them up to these different projections going across the table, they would begin to manipulate and move the different technical drawings that were on the paper and make them do all different types of stuff. This was really interesting to me. I really like technical drawings. I think they look totally awesome. I have a technical drawing of a human heart on my actual shoulder over here, and it is from Grey's Anatomy, not the show, the book. And I'm a big fan of technical blueprint art. So for me, this was really exciting. Again, my youngest child liked this. My older one, my 5-year-old, wasn't as excited, but you'll see what he liked the most next.
Come on over here, you grab a white book, pick it up, open it up, here you go. It's full of blank pages, so you take the blank pages over here, bring it over here. There you go. Oh, look, there's a guy going across your book right now.
And this is what he loved. It was this styrofoam pellet area. So there's these styrophones, little pellets of styrofoam, I should say, that were all scattered throughout this little box area that would blow air up and shoot light through it at the same time, kind of giving it this sort of holographic image type look and feel, as if like it was a fountain you could reach out and touch and grab pieces of and hold in your hand and drop as it would change color. It was really interesting in that aspect. Great for older kids. They give you some time to kind of push it all together, make sure it gets over all the air jets that are going to blow these things around, and then you have a great time touching them and feeling them. And my older son, my 5-year-old, really loved this. He waited in line a very long time to play with this machine and had a great time with it.
What does it do is like when you touch it, right?
A couple other small things just on our way out here. We had a table that was light and heat sensitive, so as you would move your own hand over it and make a shadow or have it be touched by the heat of your hands, it would change colors and shapes on the table and sense wherever the area was that your hand was touching. One last one, we didn't get a chance to go to this because the line for this thing was just insane, were these TVs that you project it yourself onto the screen and it would create all these different images around your head. I don't know. I wasn't overly impressed by this. You can do this in Google Hangouts, so I mean, I don't know how this is that great of an interactive image. Maybe Google Hangouts isn't that popular in Japan yet, so they don't know about that. I mean, you can do much better looking stuff. Anyway, guys, that was the Children's Art Museum at the Haruka's building in Tonoji on the 16th floor. It is one of the tallest buildings in Japan. Check it out for that if you don't check it out for the art museum. And if you're there while it's still in town, check that out as well. I am Unrested with the questions you requested. This was on a child's art museum in Tonoji, Osaka. I'm going to sign off with the gift shop, something we both exit through on the way out. You can take a look yourself and check out some products that probably maybe only exist in art museums in Japan. Have a good one, guys. I'll see you next time.